Now, the Church of England has told parishes to draw up race action plans, whatever those are, after one bishop who supports the Black Lives Matter movement, of course she does, urged it to embrace being woke. Joining me now to discuss this and another big story in the news as well is former NHS nurse and commentator at the New Culture Forum, that's Amy Gallagher. Good morning to you, afternoon, sorry. Great to have you in the studio. I mean, this is just, frankly, is what we come to expect from the Church of England, isn't it? The General Synod, which is the Church's legislative body, passed a motion yesterday which said it should encourage parishes and deaneries to develop local action plans to address issues of racial injustice and to draw up race action plans. This after the Right Reverend Rose Hudson Wilkin, the Bishop of Dover, who is a pro-Black Lives Matter bishop, urged it to embrace being woke. Weak is a better word, wouldn't it? Embrace being woke. Would we expect anything else from the Church of England these days?
No, this is very much in keeping with the way that the Church of England is going. We know, for example, that Justin Welby has recently said that the Rwanda plan goes against the nature of God. He seems to be acting much more like a Labour MP than the Church of England minister. And we've seen that this is happening. Critical race theory and woke is totally taking over the Church of England.
It starts on the premise that everyone's racist, the country's racist, the church is racist, every institution is racist. If you're white, you're a perpetrator of the slavery and the empire and racial division. And if you're black or Asian or any other ethnicity, then other than white, you must be a victim. That's the premise of this.
Well, this is the idea. I mean, woke functions like a religion. So the idea that you'd bring woke into the Christian faith is going to take over, and it's going to... I mean, for example, like you say, that there's the idea of the original sin of being white and being male. Woke believes in miracles, like a man could become a woman and a woman could become a man. So the idea that they would embrace woke ideology, to me, is saying we're actually no longer Christian anymore. We actually have a whole new different outlook and ethos. And the idea of having, a race, what seems to me be positive discrimination or affirmative action flies in the face of the beliefs of the Christian Church, which is that everybody's equal and you shouldn't judge people on the colour of their skin.
And indeed, I mean, the Church of England and the Christian Church largely it goes across many different countries and continents. Again, there's like, this particular Right Reverend Rose Hudson Wilkins, she herself is black. And she has been calling on there to be, more bishops, cathedral deans and other senior church people who are from ethnic minorities. Is she also calling for the black churches in African nations to have more white bishops?
Well,
I'm assuming not.
Well, this is it. It only ever goes one way. For example, we have 4 million Muslims in this country, and the majority of Muslims are Asian. The majority of leaders within Islam are Asian. Now, there's no cause for race equality or racial representation within that particular region in this country or elsewhere. As you say, it doesn't...
If someone's not being appointed as a bishop because they are black, then, that is racism.
Yes, of course.
By the way, no one seems to have an issue if it's women who don't get these jobs.
Exactly.
Which is basically entrenched in the church. I know the Church of England has moved on far more than the Catholic Church, but not that far.
No, exactly. And also, like you say, disparities in race doesn't necessarily mean that racism has happened.
Yeah.
There doesn't seem to be any instances or evidence of somebody being turned away because they're black, but it just happens to be that there are more white people in the Christian Church.
Well, more white people in the Church of England in a country which is 90% white.
Of course. And actually,
shocker.
Yes, exactly. And the one incident where a black priest was turned away was in the case of Calvin Robinson, who is a right-wing Christian who was turned away because he doesn't accept woke ideology.
It was about his beliefs rather than anything else.
Wanted that or respected that. And similarly, as you were saying, Amy, I don't think parishioners actually want churches and church leaders meddling in politics.
No, indeed. Do you agree on that, Amy?
Well, yeah, I mean, we know that church attendance is going down and many people...
It's absolutely plummeting.
Yes, it's plummeting.
Evangelical churches are doing better.
Yes, and we get the sense that they're trying to invoke woke in order to draw people in, but it's having the complete opposite effect. Actually, it's the more orthodox churches that reject woke where the congregation is rising.
Yeah, and by definition, again, if the Christian ethos on which this country is based by the Judeo-Christian teachings, the ethos is, you have an individual relationship with God and that you are, every man and woman is created equal. I mean, these are really basic tenets of the Christian religion. Then anything that divides people along you know, all of the diversity politics is all about division. You're different because you're a man, or you're different because you're gay, or you're different because you're black, or you're Asian, or you're white, or you're anything else. That goes against every aspect of the Christian teaching, as I understand it, as an atheist.
Yes, of course, because being an authority in the Christian Church, it's not just a normal job. You are embodying values and, as you say, an ethos. And woke ideology not only goes against some of the Christian values, it's actually anti-Christian in some ways. Yep. For example, Black Lives Matter, that this priest seems to advocate for, actually is a very Marxist organisation. It's against the nuclear family. Yep. It's against organised religion. Yes. So how could you have that within the Christian Church?
How can you be in favour of both?
Well, organised religion. Yes. So how could you have that within the Christian Church?
How can you be in favour of both? Well, let's also talk about another story on the wokery list today. This boils my blood. I've got a personal aspect to this. I'm going to read the Daily Mail's copy, and then I'm going to correct it. You've met me. Yeah. A trans man and his fiancée are planning to undergo IVF treatment on the NHS using her womb and his eggs. Taylor Winters, 40, from Watford in Hertfordshire, was born a female but always felt like a boy growing up. He began transitioning, started testosterone treatment age 34. Before transitioning, decided to freeze his eggs and is now beginning IVF treatment on the NHS with his fiancée, Chloe. Right. You can't freeze your eggs if you're a man. You can only freeze your eggs if you're a woman, because only women have eggs. So the correct story is a man who lives as if he is a a woman who lives... See, it's complicated, isn't it, if you use the wrong terms? A woman who has decided to live life as if she were a man, identifies as a man, and her fiancé is also a woman, are planning to undergo IVF treatment on the NHS using her womb and her eggs. They want to have 2 different rounds of IVF, paid for by you and me as taxpayers, where they use the fiancé's womb both times, but they use eggs of one woman for one pregnancy, eggs of the other woman for the other, so they both have a biological child. Now, the thing about this is, we know, do we not, Amy, that IVF treatment is very hard to come by. Officially, according to the, couples are supposed to be entitled to 3 rounds of IVF on the NHS. Mm-hmm. That ain't happening. Mm-hmm. When I did IVF after a bunch of miscarriages and was advised, look, if you want a chance of having a second child, you are going to have to go to IVF and just make sure you can basically pick the eggs, etc. yourself. Cost me an absolute fortune, wasn't entitled to anything at all. But these 2 women, one of whom has chosen to freeze her eggs because of the choices she has made. Now, you can argue about the level of choice someone who believes they are trans has. I understand that point. But should the NHS be funding this, or should this be something that these 2 biological women could do themselves? They're going to have a sperm donor anyway. Why does the NHS, why do taxpayers have to be involved? Well,
it's a good point. I mean, it's only recently that it's become available on the NHS for lesbian couples to have IVF. And particularly with this case...
You can basically just get a donor.
Yes.
I mean, the point, isn't it? I mean, I'm not being crude, but that is literally what women have been doing for years.
Yes, and I mean, it's not strictly a health concern, is it? I mean, it's difficult to categorise it, but it's, with this case, it's not only just that they're a lesbian couple seeking IVF, they're seeking to put the eggs of one partner into the womb of the other, and that has happened because that particular partner has chosen to undergo gender reassignment surgery and freeze their eggs rather than... I mean, I don't quite know what surgery they've had, but it's complicating things further. So presumably this would cost even more, this procedure. And I mean, it also shows the whole farce of transgender ideology, because this person is claiming to want to live as a man.
Well, they're claiming they are a man.
They're claiming they are a man, but actually we see when it comes to reproduction, absolutely sex is all that matters. Yeah. Gender identity is irrelevant.
But it's wanting to use your eggs, which you only have as a woman.
Yes.
And then I've got no hatred or animosity or anything towards this couple. Live your best life. I just don't know why the NHS is being used to fund this.
Fund it. And it's not, as you say, living as a man, because men don't have eggs. So it seems that they're wanting to use the NHS essentially to have it both ways.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're looking terribly